Welcome to From Doubt to Drive, Entrepreneurs Only. Join us on an inspired journey through the ups and downs of successful entrepreneurs. Our hosts, Mario C. Bauer and Florian Schneider, will explore how conquering doubt is essential for entrepreneurs to truly unleash drive. By being a part of our community, you too can learn how to propel from doubt to drive. So tune in, buckle up, and enjoy.
Welcome and welcome back. Hi, Florian.
Hello, Mario.
So today I have a different question. I need 3 words you associate with our next guest.
Okay. Fun. First of all, we had a lot of fun. He's a fascinating person. And a good friend.
So you put the benchmark quite high. So today I put the benchmark even higher. Today is a special episode because it's the first time we have a expert interview. Florian and me decided that every now and then we make a podcast with an expert who helps us to put the learnings from our podcast so far with the interviews of successful entrepreneurs in context and helps us to analyze that. And therefore, we invited a close friend to help us. And I want to introduce him first before I hug him virtually. It's Tobias Beck, and I took some notes because I had to catch up online to see what kind of rock star we have here today. He's a top speaker and coach with over 23 years of experience and 400,000 participants. He's a Spiegel bestseller author, has sold 100,000 books in 36 countries in 19 languages. He's also an influencer with over 200,000 followers, and he's a podcast host with 30 million downloads, and he's going to help us to reach our first million. It is an honor and pleasure to have you here. Welcome, Toby.
Hello, my friends, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's the first time I got introduced as an expert. I'm really, really flattered. Thank you so much.
I'm really sure that it will be fun and that it will be valuable because you are an expert and you also help to understand complex topics with easy words. And before we come to analyzing the context, we also thought we're going to do a little deep dive with you because next to everything I said, what you are, you're also an entrepreneur because you built your company. And we want to talk about the struggles and roadblocks you had on your way, like really cold turkey. Now, in first question to you is looking back to your career, Toby, what's the roadblock or struggle which pops up if you look back and said that was the first wall I hit? And if you can travel back with us to that moment and share how you felt and more important, how you got out of that again and how you found the drive as an entrepreneur.
First of all, one of my core beliefs that I can do everything by myself for a long time. And I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur by accident because, as you know, I worked as a flight attendant for 24 years for a big airline. And then I became a trainer. And this is how we met. We were at a beautiful company together where we did a lot of magic because as a side hustle, I built up this little training company for myself where the goal of that was to make people smile and laugh while learning communication, service, and dealing with difficult situations, especially with customers. Why was I able to do that? Because I had all these customers in the plane, especially in first class, where I, after a while, became promoted as a purser. So I took that model, put it on other companies who actually took this halo effect from Lufthansa saying, okay, if he's doing that there, it cannot be that stupid. So why don't we do it in our company? And I did this for many, many, many years as a trainer and loved it until I realized that there might be something bigger out there. And I started to scale. I wanted to scale, but I didn't know how to. I didn't know how I can. And that's the first wall. Everything I did, how can I put that on the market that many people can participate? And I didn't have a book. I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have anything until this one night where I got a phone call that made me become a speaker. not because I was a speaker, it was because another speaker got sick at a big event. And they saw me speaking before at one of my trainings with 20 people. So they said, there is a slot at midnight, 700 people, and you can speak for 20 minutes about your animal type. The animal type structure that I built is pretty much that every entrepreneur knows it. It's yellow, blue, green, and red. And I just translated it into easy words. So I went to this venue, I see 700 people, I'm on stage, I'm doing what I have been doing with Vapiano and telecommunication companies for over 10 years. I say exactly the same words and I get standing ovation from the audience. And then the owner of that fair came to me and said, how much do you charge for a keynote? And I gave him 3 times the number than you guys paid me in the restaurant industry. And he said, okay, I'm going to book you for 100 days, 100 days. But the opposite was I only, the interesting part was that I only had to work for 1 hour instead for an entire day. And the wall was, how can I scale that? And what I did then is ask for advice. And somebody told me I should write a book. And the book is very easy written. This is the one, by the way, which is in 36 countries, 19 languages. Where in a very easy form that everybody can understand, communication is put down in a way that helps people serve others. And this was my first wall to create something that is lasting longer than myself. But I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. After the book, people started to ask, can I work with you? Can we build a company together? Can I be your CEO? Can I be your assistant? Can I be your marketing manager? Can I be your CFO? So I never asked people, can we build a company? They came to me asking, can I help you to build a company?
Yeah.
And when we step forward now in 2024, I have around 15 employees, about 20 freelancers that I pay. And I wouldn't still consider me as a classical entrepreneur because I'm not. I'm not driven by KPIs. I'm not driven so much by numbers. I'm driven by reaching as many people as possible. That's my drive.
In fact is, Toby, you are an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't feel it because you employ people, you have a structure, you have systems, you have something in place, and you shared now the early day struggle. But now there was a huge step forward to the size you have now, and you fill stadiums and you have like a lot of parallel things going on. If you now really look on the, let's say, last 5 years where you have been a sizable company, just not just the brand Toby and the speaker Toby, but the company Tobias Beck, what was a really like a grown-up struggle where you said, okay, I had a company, I built a company, everything is running, and suddenly, what was that suddenly something happened?
Suddenly, many things happened, especially over the last 5 years. I was a 100% offline company. Everything we did was events with people in venues. So during the pandemic, from one day to the other, it was for the first time in my life that I got the fear of not being able to pay for my staff. As I did not want to become an entrepreneur, I gave that part to CEO who was pretty much responsible for it. And for many months, I paid my team from savings, from my private savings. We have to jump back in time again. I'm framed as a flight attendant who makes 1,800 euros per month. Becoming self-employed, reaching the first €1,000,000 in revenue was already a giant step in my life. It's not that I'm born with a golden spoon. I'm the only self-employed in my entire family. Nobody is. Everybody is employed, good or worse. All the others are in the state. They are teachers. They're working for the postal office. Like everybody's in the system. So when the pandemic hit, all of them said, "See, I told you so." Now you have a problem. Now you cannot pay your people anymore. Why didn't you stay with Lufthansa? Why didn't you become a teacher as we told you? You would be safe. And that made something with my mind because I got really scared of not being able to pay. And then I was forced. Usually I like to do everything in a way, as you said before, Toby, is fun. I like to do things fun and happy, but it wasn't fun and I wasn't happy. I had to scale online. I had to put my business online somehow, and I didn't know how. So the easiest thing I could have done was close down or just declare bankruptcy, which many people in my field did. But I thought to myself, okay, I have the book I talked about. Maybe I can make an online format of the book. I could just, and at this time, I hated online. I hated camera. I mean, you know me. I'm a people person. I need to hug people. I need to feel the room, make high fives, do my balloon thing, confetti. I love these things to create magic, but I wasn't able to do it anymore. And then all my team called me and said, Toby, you are not the one who is giving up. We can see you are afraid, but we are still here. And this is one of my biggest learnings. Nobody called me and said, I'm giving up my job. They all said, how can we give you so much energy that we can scale it online? So everything we did was we tried to put our offline model into an online model, and then the magic happened. We said, let's do a webinar. It was on a Wednesday evening. I've never spoken into a camera in my entire life. Instead of little things that I had to do, interviews, stuff like that. I had 1.5 hours, and we recorded an online course in my bedroom on the wall. No good lighting, no perfect camera, no perfect microphone, because we didn't have the money at that time. And with this webinar, we made more revenue than we did in a year with all offline trainings that we did. And that changed the entire game. That changed everything.
Toby, I have a question that is a little bit more, let's say, personal in that sense, because we talk with entrepreneurs about their business. Now, you are, in a way, your own business, because your name is your brand and your product and your personality at once. And you're speaking in front of thousands of people. They love you, they follow you, but at the same time, with all the lovers, you also have haters that send you hate emails that actually creates shitstorms around what you're doing. So you got a cold and a warm shower at the same time. How do you manage and how do you balance this love and hate at the same time?
As a person who, in a structure of a personality type, needs appreciation and wants to be loved, that is the most difficult part of my business, not being loved, because whatever I do, and that's for everybody, of course, there are some people who hate it. In my world, the hate goes very far, because especially in the internet world, people write very nasty stuff under YouTube videos, very personal, very disgusting, sometimes definitely crossing the line. And it took me, as a personality, a very, very long time to understand that the internet is that positive, fluffy teddy bear, and it's hell at the same time. Then, when you are out there, when your name, and as I said, I didn't actually want it to become this big. It just happened somehow through the book, through the podcast. Nobody thought that many people would listen to it, because it was just unpredictable. See, I didn't have somebody who says, "Oh, that you will become very successful." I didn't have that. It just became somehow by accident. And then once you have a lot of lovers, some haters, they make the shit really big. And then, especially within the last 2 years, I had several media attacks that really tried to put my business out, but it was on a very personal level. They didn't attack my business as much as they attacked my being, my personality, because they were assuming, for example, that I've never lived with monks, that I never worked for Lufthansa, that I never experienced the things I said on stage. And I have to admit that, of course, as a speaker, that's a form of art sometimes, and I'm still willingly doing this. I'm blowing up stories in a way that people feel and see it. Like, for example, when I say I was in a monastery in Thailand and in front of me it was the first monk I've ever seen, and he hovered on top of a throne. Of course, no monk hoovers in my world at this time to give it more, to make it a little bit more bloomy. He did. So these media attacks were very personal, and the media then found out that it doesn't hurt me and my business at all. I mean, that's another learning. That's another big wall. I hit the wall, but my business didn't collapse. The contrary happened. All the people who followed me formed that circle around me again, saying, no. First of all, we don't believe that. Second of all, there's a lot of BS in what there is written or aired. But as an entrepreneur now, it gave me the opportunity to recheck things I'm doing. It gave me the opportunity to back up. I remember when we worked together, we had that scandal in that restaurant with the salad and the caterpillar. You know, it was a scandal. I had a scandal now. People were saying in my seminars, X, Y, Z happens, and I didn't have a psychological or scientific backup for that. Now I do. If somebody asks me, hey, Toby, is it true that in your seminars some people undress and sing? I say yes. It's a technique that comes from Konstantin Stanislavski, who is one of the most famous actors and helps people to understand what is really inside of them. And there's a lot of evidence. Do you want to see the study? That's a completely different attempt than saying, yeah, it's true, but it's just cool because people lose their fear. So behind what happened, there was also a gift. And I'm happy that happened.
You have, with the thing you do, you stay on stage in front of thousands of people, you influence them in a way how they can look upon their lives, how they can actually make change if they want. You have a certain responsibility for those people. How do you, and it's getting more and more, it grows bigger from a small group of, let's say, 20 restaurant managers up to stadiums with 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people. How do you manage the responsibility, you as a single person standing in front of them, knowing that you have an influence, that you have impact, and that you can actually guide them? How do you do that?
My first seminar that I attended myself as a just participant was when I was 19, because I was somebody who was looking for something. I wasn't good at school. I needed to find some guidance. And what I'm doing now, like 30 years later, is helping people to find some guidance within themselves. Pretty much what I say is, never come back. You don't have to come back to this conference. You don't have to read more books. You're good and ready as you are. But the responsibility is huge. The biggest keynote I ever did or will be doing is this year on the 27th of September with 35,000 people in Budapest in English, which is not even my mother tongue. And the message I give to people is pretty simple. You cannot reach whatever you want to reach, but you can reach more than you are thinking right now. I have the strong belief for everybody who listens to this podcast, and I know you too. You are also in a phase of change, you know. I believe that the biggest problem of people is that they already reached their goals. They didn't aim high enough. And I'm telling them, find a new goal, go there, and there's a very high chance that you can reach it. And this is pretty much my message. And that came with it over the last 10 years. I say there might be someone who wants to help you if you go out there and change the world for the good. There might be some miracles happening, because I see that every day. And people, for some reason, love to hear that. It's very simple. It's very basic. It's pretty much what monks told me. I just now give to others. And the responsibility is huge. And the danger that some people are disillusionized. Is that a word? Probably. Is that a word?
We make it a word.
English.
We make it a word. We're making a word.
Therefore, I turn my business more into communication and presentation skills. I use the keynote because I need, as a keynote speaker, to teach other people how to tell stories and to do storytelling. Of course, I need a big stage, but my biggest pleasure is not keynote speaking. My biggest pleasure is helping entrepreneurs and people who have something inside of them to put a story together that goes out there and goes viral. And why can I do that? Because I have some videos with a simple story who hit millions of subscribers on YouTube. So I take this gift and put this story together for others. And guess what? It works for them as well, because it's just a way of storytelling.
I think, Toby, we because you gave the right story now to open the second part of the interview of the podcast, which is, let's say, the expert, Toby. If we now start in giving advice to entrepreneurs, because you said you thrive on that and you like to do that. So let's imagine you get called by somebody who's an entrepreneur in your field or another field, doesn't really matter, and hits a massive roadblock. He struggles, he starts doubting himself, he loses the energy, and he's really coming like on the floor, robbing into your living room and say, Toby, I need your help. Without obviously being able to know the details of his problem, because we cannot be an expert in every field. But what's the tool set you as a coach would apply to help him or her out of that massive crisis? What's the first aid kit to get this entrepreneur out of the crisis?
First of all, is finding a surrounding where the individual is opening up, that there is that somebody is listening who is also an entrepreneur and who really understands what's happening inside. Because as you just framed that person had burning desire before. That person had hunger of building something before. And for some reason, that light inside of him or her became smaller and smaller over time. So kind of what we have to do first is remember two things. Where did the fire started to get smaller? And when was the time in your life when the fire started to really burn like a very strong flame? What caused that and what caused that? Because something happened in the middle. And what happened in the middle for most entrepreneurs is that especially the surrounding where they're in can be very harmful. It's full of competition. It's full of decision. It's full of bureaucracy. And some people just get fed up. And there's this dangerous red button on their desk saying, you know what? I have enough. I leave. But before that happens, that flame goes smaller and smaller and smaller. And the best situation that you have is once you feel that your burning desire is losing its appeal also in front of others, that's the moment you have to ask for help. Once that starts, not once the flame is out, it's really, really difficult to do anything. But in the midst, this is where most people are. And you see the statistics yourself. How many people want to quit? Also entrepreneurs. This is where you need help. And there is actually there's big magic. Why? Because some people don't do where they were born for. Some people are in family industries where mommy or daddy said, why don't you take the company? Why don't you do that and that? And some of these core beliefs are so strongly in the brain that a talk just, okay, what would you do if you don't do what you are doing? For some people does magic. They would say something like, I would do something in nature. Yeah, what would you do in nature? Yeah, I would work in the forest. It was so great. You would go with that person to the forest and say, what would you do here? Yeah, I would work with wood. Do you have a hobby where you work with wood? No, I don't have time. Let's make time. It's sometimes easy. And if that doesn't help, what always helps since thousands of years, and that's not a Tobias Beck or Mario or Florian story, is walk the Jacob Trail, take a time out, go to a monastery. And now comes the biggest secret, but that's a belief. Nobody has to believe that. I believe in karmic management. You get what you give. If you put things in your garden, you see the fruit, the flowers, and the trees, not immediately, but years later. If you're an entrepreneur, what do you do good besides giving money to other people? How much are you serving mankind, people who don't know you, people where you don't get anything in return? What do? Do you work for the paramedic? Are you, that is important, because if you don't do that, your roots cannot go deep into the ground. You cannot identify yourself only as an entrepreneur. The universe will give you the biggest hit of your life because there is more. If you do it as a vehicle to serve others, to be a good employer, perfect. But if you do it for a reason of being a shiny entrepreneur and the big car thing, it comes back around, I guarantee. Why? It happens every day, and monasteries are full of these people.
I like the word karmic management. We really have to mark that.
You need to trademark that.
Elaborate that
karmic
further.
management.
No, it is already trademarked. It's by Geshe Michael Roach, and I'm one of his students. This is a concept I learned for myself. He told me, if you put the right seed in your garden, which is not a KPI, which is not a perfect product, which is not everything that traditional entrepreneurship does. If you put love in the garden, care in the garden, a nice word to somebody who cleans your freaking toilet, it's so simple and basic, and a Christmas gift for her, it will show up as a flower. If you don't do it, you have a beautiful garden made by others, but it's not your trees, it's not your garden.
Yeah. Toby, Mario and I, we actually made a white paper out of the first 10 episodes where we tried to condense what the entrepreneurs told us. What we would like to do with you now is go through these topics and top learnings we had and maybe get your view on it. And I would just start with the first one that we filtered out. It was be resilient, persistent, and focused. What is your taking of that? Being resilient, persistent, and focused.
I agree 100% by adding you need things implemented in your life that make you more resilient. Meditation, time with friends, vacation where your phone goes off. You are not reachable. You are not the Pope. You are not the president of the US. You can switch out your phone. If you go diving, you go diving and you look at fish. Then in the periods where you work, I agree 100% on everything you said. But you need a cable where you recharge. Most people don't do that.
I agree totally. Another thing is act fast, lead strong. You need to act. You just got to do something in a certain situation. And you actually described during the pandemic what you did when you actually felt that roadblock. What is your taking on that? Act fast, lead strong.
I think everything we see where we are right now was once in the head of a human being. And the concept of starting before you are ready is perfect, because otherwise we overthink, otherwise we do everything better, otherwise we have a horse. You are in the horse industry. the horse looks perfect, but nobody sits on it, nobody rides on it. It will not perform. So yeah, start before you are ready, and then recalibrate with people who are smarter than you. You have to lead people, yes, but you always have to surround yourself with a group who is smarter than you are, and then you can lead a group that is following your vision. But don't act, find something, think you are the best, then trying to give this to others so they do all the work doesn't work. You still have to connect yourself with a circle of AAA players who always polish you and who always punish you by saying, no, you are not done. It's not done now. So this is what I believe. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question, and I might know the answer already, but in that topic, many entrepreneurs actually said they lead either by data or by gut. You said you don't care about KPIs so far, so I guess your answer will be you make a lot of your decisions by gut feeling. But in then that context, one of our guests actually said, ask yourself, is it killing me or is it just hurting me? Is that something that you can subscribe to as this is how I do the decisions? How does Toby Beck come to a decision?
Especially on a personal level, I have learned that gut feeling that people describe is something that also humans have since we are on planet Earth. And now comes something spiritual. It is that message that is bigger than you. If you don't listen to it, you don't have the problem right away. You have the problem 2 or 4 years later, and everybody knows that. So what I would say is have a gut feeling and back it up with data. It's stupid to do everything by gut, but if you have a gut feeling and then you go for it, and then you find somebody who is smarter than you, who is very KPI driven, or in my concept, very owlish, that is a concept that could really work for many people. And behind that, there's also a deep understanding that when you have this gut feeling, it is something that, like an artist paints by gut. An artist cannot paint by technique alone. So I love to compare things with art because the picture is already inside before it comes outside. Michelangelo was asked what he was doing, and he said, "I'm getting the statue out of the block. It was already there." So yeah, do gut and then back it up with data. Do you have the resource? Otherwise, see another thing Toby Beck never does. I never spend money that I don't have. That's also a big topic. I never ever spend money that I don't have. I always spend money that I have. And I know many entrepreneurs who believe different, and it's okay to get a credit from the bank for your business, but not for private matters. That's what my gut tells me, for example.
There was these old themes we have, as you know, which were brought up when people struggle, and that's kind of the 7 core rules, as we call that, and 2 of them Florian covered now. I have the next one. It is the topic is called "Become Your True Self," and we had a lot of quotes on that. We had John Egbert from Five Guys who said, especially under pressure, you need to become your most authentic self. And Michael Dura from Develai said, in crisis, be yourself. Don't mimic somebody else. Like really strip all the mask down, because when shit hit the fan, basically you can only succeed and get out there if you're your true self. How does that resonate, or what thoughts you have on that theme?
Speaking for myself is I think I'm able to handle a lot of shit, but there was a time where everything came at once. Like after the pandemic, my relationship didn't work out anymore. I got a divorce. The media hit. We had some struggle in the company. I shared before. Everything came at the same time. And I think the most important factor then is to ask for help. At this moment, I flew to a monastery in Thailand, and it was a mountain monastery where there were no tourists before. I have a Thai friend who said, "Do you want the real stuff, or do you want the stuff that people post on Instagram about?" And I said, "Okay, I need the real stuff. I don't know what to do anymore. Everything I told people on stage did not work for me anymore. All these calendar posts, like things that you say, they sound funny, but when they hit in your life, it hits really, really deep." And in this mountain monastery where I was not allowed to use toothpaste, no shower gel, it was just pure, it was just naked. I had some auditions with a head monk and asked these questions all the time. I felt that like everything fell into pieces. And then he looked at me and he said, "So what do you believe is when everything falls into pieces? What do you think, what happens when we leave here?" And I said, I don't understand your question. And he said, "I think when we leave here, there's only one question that you are being asked when your physical body, when your little piece of existence on this earth is gone. There's just one remaining question. And I said, what's that question? And he said, the question you will be asked is, how was heaven? And I had to cry so bad, because he said, you're still alive. You're breathing, your heart is working. You get food once per day here. What's left over by the monks, stop whining. And the finding the middle way of not being a whiny, tiny thumb sucker and somebody who is burning hard and is not being authentic, that's the magic. Find the true self within that. And after flying back, I changed a lot. I was never able to say no before. I wanted to be everybody's darling. That Toby has changed. If I don't like something, I say I don't like it. If I don't want to go to a party, I say I'm really sorry. I'm not coming. That became a big turning point in my life.
How was heaven? It's difficult to find I just changed the topic. It's very difficult to connect to that very emotional story. We also had a very strong quote from a mentor of mine and a very successful leader, Clive Schley, and he said that when he hits this crisis and he doesn't know what to do, he said the answer is always in you, and he just asks himself, what would the best version of myself do now? Like, what would and I have a lot of struggle. I have all this stress. I'm as you also shared before, you were scared, or entrepreneurs are scared to close down, to go bankruptcy, to use the face, to fire people, etc. And under stress, it's very, very difficult to make the right decision because we panic. And he said he always tries to apply that rule. What would the best version of myself do now? And that's the right answer. He was guiding us. How does that resonate to you?
To be honest, under pressure, when I'm emotionally hit hard, that person doesn't speak to me. I love the concept of a celebrity twin, of someone I can relate to very, very strongly. That can be a friend, father. For me, it's Les Brown. It's a speaker from the US. For me, he's one of the wisest people on earth. And when I'm under a lot of emotional pressure or stress, and I cannot listen to my inner voice, I ask myself, what would Les do? And then I take a piece of paper and I write the Toby answers and I write the Les answers, and they're always future driven. They're always service driven. They're always, what is your blessing to the world? And my list is ego, 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 ego. But I am, but that happened, and the others. So for me, personally, the celebrity twin works better when I'm under stress and emotion, because otherwise I cannot think straight at that moment. And that, I had a lot of coachings over the last years who helped me with that, because especially as an entrepreneur, making decisions under pressure and under stress, like for example with the media, when I see that outlet and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what about the customers coming next week to a seminar? Are they all going to cancel? Will we lose 2 million euros? Not becoming the victim of my own head, because what I learned in the last 46 years of my life, my brain is definitely not my friend. It tries to negotiate me out of everything. Everything big says you cannot do it. That's why I ask for help then, or take the celebrity twin.
That's a good concept. It actually contemplates in a way the kill the ego topic we had, where many of the entrepreneurs also said you have to kill your ego. You have to believe in yourself, stay positive as good as possible in that situation, and move forward. Toby, you consider yourself as a people person. You said that in the intro already, and that is also one of the topics that a lot of entrepreneurs said. It's all about the people. And what you do when you stand on stage, and I think you can actually subscribe to that completely, but give us your learnings on that topic. It's all about the people. How can that help to overcome struggle? How can that help to find the right way and the right decisions?
I believe that we all need a story library in our head that helps us overcome situations who are falling into place in the presence. For example, you get a very difficult phone call. There's something going on with your business. You need a story library that reminds you why you do that. Let me give you an example that makes it a little clearer. At that point where I was just divorced, where my business struggled and the media hit at the same time, I'm in a venue with with thousands of people, and people are still lining up for my book to get a signature. A part of me thought, oh, if they would know what an asshole I am, I just divorced. I mean, why can you stand in front of me buying this book? It's actually all BS, and I'm a loser myself. There was a guy coming to that table, and he looked at me, and when he opened his mouth, he had 2 or 3 teeth here, and the rest of the teeth were gone. And the first thing I thought was, when I saw him, Breaking Bad. I don't know if you know the Netflix series,
sure.
but he looked like a crack or crystal addict. And he stands in front of me and he says, I was a crystal addict here in Cologne at the train station. I sold my body for 10 years, and then he pushed a woman in front of him who looks exactly like him, but as a female version. No teeth, this red dots everywhere. And they both look at me and they start crying. They say, we are clean since 4 months. And we got this ticket to this venue here to say thank you. And I look at them, I said, I've never met you. And they said, I know, but somebody gave me. And then he takes out that book. Mm-hmm. And he said, somebody gave me your book. And that story in the book made us think. And then another magic happened. We have this club where you get a motivational quote every morning via audio. Some guy on the train station, instead of giving him money, gave him a password to that. And I bursted into tears. I just had to, I was crying. I tried to run away. There were a lot of stairs. There were so many people. I couldn't be at my book stand anymore. But this is a story in my story library for the moments where I'm close to give up. And to be very honest, it happens on a weekly basis that I'm thinking to myself, why don't I just go to Northern Cyprus, put my body in the sun, fly back to the kids, have fun with them, and just leave that industry? But these stories then matter. It's not about me.
It's like not just a story library, it's like your own energy pills, no? Like your own stories which you can swallow or drink like an energy pill or an energy drink to regain drive, actually, because also that's what the podcast is. It says like from doubt to drive. And I think this story library is a great tool to help yourself, if you're in doubt, to regain drive.
And I have a box. Yeah. I have a box here with letters of people that they write. And in moments where I'm not feeling well, I read these letters, pictures that they draw when they change I don't know them. See, that's the point. I don't know these people personally, but I know that it makes a difference. And if you have a restaurant, if you have a car dealership, whatever, everything you sell affects lives of people. And when you understand that concept, then the magic is immediately there again. And maybe that's a secret for everybody if you want to have one. I'm very, very happy, the happiest person with what I do at the present time. Also, when we worked together in Vapiano, I was very happy.
And people feel that.
I did not need to become a speaker, author, millionaire. That was not necessary. I would have been as happy flying, serving people in economy class. Does not even have to be first class. I was just happy what I was doing. And therefore, if I would be projected with a picture of myself so many years later, I would probably think something major must have been happened during that time, but I probably couldn't grasp it at that. No.
Toby, for the end is like you're probably the person I know who invested most in himself, because it's not just your industry that you give advice and you give mentoring and coaching. You also receive a lot, you read a lot, etc. If now entrepreneurs, and mostly there are entrepreneurs listening to that, and say, this guy picked a certain tone, I start trusting him. What can this struggling entrepreneur do with you or within your ecosystem? Do you have any products or services or guidance which you can offer? And if that's not the case, on where would you make them looking? Because I think that was the first context episode, and that's the other entrepreneurs, they all gave advice, and we get very strong feedback that it's helpful, but none of them obviously guides them to a coaching or to a seminar or to whatever. Although one, Katie Johnson said, get yourself
Find yourself a work therapist.
And where would you send them? If it resonates, what you sent here to them, where would you guide them? Where would you send them? Where can they start their journey of finding themselves, of asking all that questions, what you have done? Can they find it with you, or can they find it with colleagues you trust? Where can we send them?
They can only find it with me if they have that feeling of, I can trust that guy, something resonates. And I believe that storytelling is the strongest tool you can use in entrepreneurship. Because with storytelling and presenting, and I'm talking about the new version of presenting, which is vulnerable, which is honest, which is raw, you can put an army of people behind you who will help you to fulfill your dream of building a company. But you have to break through the wall of people who are at the same time thinking about social media, Tinder, Uber. You have to find words where you can reach into their heart. And that's what I'm teaching people. I do that with seminars in Northern Cyprus, where we distillate their life story in a way that it makes people cry. And maybe that's something I can say after 20 years in that industry. If you don't cry talking about your why, it's not your why. Period. Let's find that. And if you have that message for others, people will build that circle of trust around you, because they will see that you are honest. And I mean, Jim Rohn and Bill Gates and all these successful people, Steve Jobs pointed it best. He said there's the iPhone and there's the story behind the iPhone. People camp in front of a store because of the story they make in their head while Apple is talking to them. And if you're an entrepreneur and you master that skill set of storytelling in a way that gets you goosebumps and gets other people goosebumps while you speak, you don't need PowerPoint anymore. You don't need a presenter anymore. You put yourself on that freaking stage and put your soul out, and people will follow you. Period.
So another great memory created with Toby. Looking back in our friendship, we had so many nice moments going for all these scouting trips, Vapiano trainings, Vapiano openings, Vapiano conventions, and then so many side trips. And I always what I always connect with being around Toby is to come out happier than as I come in. And now I would like to add, Toby, I also come out wiser than I have been, because that really helped our context, and I'm really happy we did that. So Florian, let's compare the learnings.
Let's compare the learnings. Again, I mean, when you asked me in the beginning the three words, and I said he's a fascinating person, he really is a fascinating character.
Yeah, true.
Toby, and his life path is... it's just admirable. It's amazing what he achieved.
Definitely.
So, my first learning is when you ask him about the roadblocks he hit, and he told the story about during the pandemic, and he told the story about his team that actually came to him, helping him and asked him, how can we give you energy back? And it again shows the importance of a strong team also in the background to support an entrepreneur in such situations.
Yeah, and he said, and then the magic happened, and he turned around a basically bankrupt offline business by COVID into an online business, which he shared was making more money with the first online seminar than the year before with the offline. And that was only possible because his team, or his people around, carried him through that doubt or that crisis. Very strong one. What's the next one, Florian?
When you ask him what advice he would give to entrepreneurs and how they reflect in times of trouble, he actually said you have to find the right surrounding to open up, and then ask yourself, your inner fire, what was the moment when it was strong? Where did it start burning? And what was actually the moment when it became weaker? And when you find that spot in between, then you start analyzing. And then you ask yourself, what would you do if you would not do what you are doing? A little bit a complicated sentence, but there's so much truth in it because you start reflecting. That's
and he's like, I wrote down like he didn't say that, but he meant it like nurture that flame. Make sure the flame is there. Mette said when she does the coaching for young entrepreneurs, she asks, is the passion still there?
Right.
In Tobi's words, it would mean it's like, is the flame still burning?
Yeah.
And he also said in the same context, he said, do what you're born for. And if that flame goes lower, walk the Jacob's Trail, go into the monastery, like find this peaceful surrounding, which helps you that flame. Before already I had also two more notes. He said he hit the wall several times, but he didn't collapse. I found that really I think when he talked about it, it felt like he was almost surprised that he didn't collapse. But he built something in him or around him which helped him. I like that thought. And I also like when he said, I never had somebody around me who told me you will be successful. He said that he comes from a family where everybody had a safe job at the bank or a teacher or a hospital or governmental or close to governmental institution. And he was the first, let's say, the crazy ones, as we said, the entrepreneurs who go out of the box and do something which is even more crazy in that context, is becoming a speaker or a trainer. I think to understand the context where he came from and that he had to kind of self-motivate himself to get through that was a very, very strong learning for me.
Yeah. Also in the wrap-up at the end where he actually looked at himself from being a flight attendant at Lufthansa 30 years ago and where he is now, and he would say, I don't realize myself anymore. I recognize myself.
I cannot even believe it.
Yeah. A very, very interesting topic, and I think we probably will implement it further in the future, is this karmic management. That is a very cool concept he elaborated with us, where he said you get what you give, and you have to do something out of the realm of your entrepreneurship and your business, and that actually pays into your business as well because it comes back. Put love in the garden.
Put love in kindergarten. You get what you give. 100%. I have as a next one, he was very clear in several nuances that he asked for help. If he has a problem, he asked for help, and then the I think one of his last stops on asking for help was this monastery in Thailand, where he said I didn't know what to do anymore. I had a shaky company. I had a shaky relationship. He shared he got divorced, and I was lost, and I didn't believe in these things which I was teaching. And then he came to the monk, and the monk said, you just need to ask yourself, like, you need to answer one question. Like, if you look back at your life, ask yourself, how was heaven? I mean, it's a very strong, very, very, very strong, deep learning.
In another way, also, he mentioned that you have to stop whining in that situation. You have to overcome that. That is what also our other guests somehow said when they said, you have to move on, stay positive, believe yourself, and kill your ego.
Yeah. And he, in that same context, he also said, like, the gut feeling is a gift, he said. And the message in you is bigger than you. And I think he found the right story, as always, to bring that thought alive. And he shared that story when Michelangelo was asked on how he sculpture out of that stone block these beautiful statues. And Michelangelo just said that it's already there. He just needs to get it out of the stone. And that's also what Toby said, like, the message in you is bigger than you think. You just need to find it and unwrap it. Unbox, as Toby says.
Unbox your
Unbox
Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Have a gut feeling that is backed up by data. That was also very interesting, because we always have this conversation where is it data or is it gut feeling that leads to a decision? But actually, it can be both. And I really like his concept to say, trust your guts, back it up with data.
100%. Then we came to this, we confronted him with one quote from Clive, where Clive said, like, he asked himself, what would the best version of myself do in that crisis? And Toby said that in that crisis mode, he cannot ask himself anymore, or maybe he doesn't trust himself anymore. He needs to reflect or mirror that into another person. There's Les Brown, and a great mentor and coach of him. And he said, like, he would then ask himself, what would Les do? When he said that, I didn't want to stop him. A celebrity twin. When we got married in Marrakesh, I remember a speech of Henry McGowan, who was also here on the podcast, and he said, it was another nuance of a crisis. He said, if you have a marital problem, you just need to ask yourself, what would love do? So maybe we have now the combination of what would Les Brown do, what would the best version of myself do, and what would love do.
Yeah. Also, very remarkable, his story library, in that you have to build up your story library in your head. That helps you in times of struggle to find back on your path. So it's really,
I think this thing when he shared, it's really literally like an energy boost or an energy pill or an energy drink. You travel back, you box this memory where you made an impact, where you did something good and you got something good back. And he shared this incredible story of the two drug addicts. And this story will give him the courage and to drive back in the next moment when he starts doubting himself because some haters or some press or whatever writes him down. He just travels back to that memory and say, that's not right. I'm not a fraud. I know that I help people. And here is the proof to myself to do that.
And storytelling is the strongest tool in entrepreneurship, he said.
Modern storytelling, he added, where you need to be vulnerable, raw, and real, which he was with us. And I want to end with the quote, and that's the message to all the entrepreneurs and listeners out there. Let's find the why where you start to cry. It needs to touch you, and if it touches you, it will touch others. Definitely Toby found the why where he starts to cry, and a lot of time others too. It was great to have this context episode. So guys, give us feedback. Let us know how you like that in the overall context. Should we do more of them? It was also a longer one. We're always willing to learn and adopt. Let us know, and we are back next week with an entrepreneur from doubt to thrive.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, we hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we did. But sharing is not just caring, it is also empowering. So recommend this podcast to fellow entrepreneurs who might need a dose of inspiration. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss out on future episodes. Thank you for being part of the community from Doubt to Drive Entrepreneurs Only. Mario and Florian are already gearing up for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, stay driven, and we'll be back next week.